It's about that time of day again. Welcome back to Nightly Newsletter, boys and girls. Joseph James here. It's Tuesday evening, September the 6th, 2016. We're back to the action after the Labor Day holiday weekend. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Glad to be back. Our favorite markets didn't waste any time revving the engine for the fall trading season, which is always the best time of the year to be a trader. All four of our favorite markets are bullish this evening in reaction to last Friday's non-farm payroll report. And with some big moves in today's session, we are expecting another big day filled with opportunities tomorrow as well. I have a great newsletter in store for you guys and gals tonight. But of course, please remember the only place to watch the full-length version of this video is here on our blog at sidewaysmarkets.com. If you're watching the video right now on our YouTube channel, not to worry, there's a link in the description of the YouTube video. Follow that link. Come over here to the blog at sidewaysmarkets.com and watch the full-length version. While you're here, don't forget to register for the mailing list. In the upper left-hand corner of the blog, all I need is your name and your email address, and I'll send you an email every evening when our nightly newsletter is ready. Right below the video tonight, you can download all the charts you see me using in tonight's video. Nice and easy. Follow that link that says click here to download today's charts and have those charts ready on your computer for tomorrow. In the upper right-hand corner, don't forget to grab your free pass. If you're not a member here at School of Trade and you'd like to come out and join me in the trade room as a guest for a few days this week or next, grab your free pass in the upper right-hand corner. And of course, don't forget, you're going to learn more with me in 1 week on my trial than you will anywhere else on the interwebs. Join the membership, the trial membership on the right-hand side of the blog. And if you have any questions along the way, I'm always here to help 24/7, 365. There's a live support button there on the right-hand side of the website. Don't be a stranger. Always standing by to answer all your questions. Big day across the board. That means we're looking for another big continuation tomorrow, possibly a bit of a range-bound scenario tomorrow. We've got a great plan here for you guys. Before we get there, though, let's double-check and take a look at the calendar here for a Wednesday session. It's going to be a little bit funky because Monday was a holiday in the U.S. A lot of the news will be pushed back 24 hours, such as, of course, the inventory report, which is typical for Wednesdays. Let's take a look first here. Anything coming out of Asia and Australia tonight? We do. We get the GDP from our good friends down under tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you trade in the Asian or early London session tomorrow morning, please be aware of that market moving event there at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We then, of course, have what is usually just before 3 a.m. It usually comes out sometime between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. We're going to hear from China from the merchandise trade balance. Another big news report in the overnight session. Be aware of that. We go down to 3:30 a.m. tomorrow morning from Great Britain. We've got home price index here, and of course, that'll round off the London overnight session. So look out for the news coming to China. We don't know exactly what time that will be. It's usually going to be before 3 a.m. Eastern Time when, of course, London session opens tomorrow. London opens up at 3 a.m. It'll go all the way until 6 a.m., right? Go to lunch in London, and of course, we'll pick up right after 7 a.m. in the U.S. session. Coming into the U.S. session, we have no major news tomorrow in the U.S. session until after 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We got 10 a.m. We got, of course, the Bank of Canada announcement. We got the Purchasing Managers Index there at 10 a.m. And, of course, my gal Yellen's favorite report, the JOLTS report, at 10 a.m. That looks to be like the big news tomorrow morning. We get the JOLTS report at 10 a.m. in the U.S. session. And then, of course, we get the beige book tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are trading the afternoon session tomorrow, be aware of that 2 p.m. report. And, of course, we'll talk more about the news in tomorrow night's session, right, when we get back to tomorrow night's newsletter. So major news coming here overnight from China. Right, major news coming in overnight from China. Got some minor news at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Then we hop, skip, and jump down to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. We got that JOLTS report, among other reports coming out at 10 a.m. That should be a definite market moving event tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, just after we come back from lunch in our chat room, we'll have that beige book tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you take note, the one thing we do not have tomorrow, which is typical for a Wednesday session, is the inventory report. The inventory report, of course, because Monday was a holiday, has been pushed back 24 hours till Thursday morning at 11 a.m. We will hear from the API inventory tomorrow night at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll talk more about that in tomorrow night's newsletter. Tonight, you're going to worry about that news out of China, and of course at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning from the JOLTS report here in the U.S., and tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern time for the Beige Book. Those are the ones you're going to worry about until the newsletter for tomorrow night. We'll talk about the plan for news going into Thursday. Moving forward here, now that we have our schedule in play here for tomorrow, let's take a look at some charts. We'll go crude oil, S&P, gold, and a little bit of euro to round things off here this evening. Crude oil is bullish and trying to retest the highs from the beginning of today's session, but overhead resistance is certainly standing in the way. The bulls have control and will be looking for buying opportunities at the low of the channel tomorrow, or they need to get a strong breakout higher to give them the confidence to buy into resistance levels waiting overhead, and they get a target up around 45.62, which of course is where all hell broke loose this morning right after that morning spike. Sellers ultimately have two choices this evening. First, they can gamble a little bit and try to fade the highs by trying to sell 45 even and hope for the reversal. Okay, not a very reliable way to do that. Or they can wait for the buyers to fail at the low of that channel and then look for selling opportunities back down to the lows, down to that battle zone at 44.42, and then of course back down to that 43.84. Most important thing right now, as we can see here, the day started off with a tremendous amount of bearishness. In fact, we spent pretty much the whole entire session this morning looking for selling opportunities until about 10:15, 10:30, when, of course, the buyers finally shook off those sellers and were able to take this price higher. At this point now, we have to remember that no matter what we had at the beginning of today, this is a bull market at this time. You'll notice a very strong move back up. Buyers hold their pullback, and this becomes a bull market. This is one of those times when I remind myself, I'll remind you, just because we have the day start off with a very strong bear move down, and yes, there is absolutely no reason why these buyers can't bobble this and price ends up right back down. Right now we have a bull market. Right now the buyers have short-term control, which means it's up to the sellers to prove them wrong if we want to have any reliable selling opportunities right now. That's one of the most important lessons learned as a new trader. It's not what we think. Looking at this chart right now, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, wow, we're about halfway off the move, and so we should be looking for this price to go right back down again. Yeah, in a long-term perspective, absolutely. But as a day trader right now, we have to remember the buyers are holding pullbacks. The buyers are going to have the slight edge until they are proven wrong, and the sellers can take control. Right now, buyers have control. Two options right now for the buyers and sellers. First, for the buyers, the most obvious, the most reliable buying opportunity here now would be a move back down to that low and give us a shot here to buy the low of that bull channel. Now, buying the low of that bull channel as it pulls back will come in the form of failures. Seller failure to get price right back up, right? So, of course, buyers looking for failures into strength, strength into pullbacks to go right back up to that high. Buying opportunities at the low and even just below the low of that channel. In my opinion, the sellers are really not going to get anything going here until they can get and stay below that 44.28, right? So buyers looking for buying opportunities with failures at the low of the channel, traps below the low of the channel, and of course failures inside that battle zone. That's where the most reliable trade is going to come here. Now, what if price doesn't pull back? It's a very strong move higher, as you can see, right? Very strong for the bulls. What if it doesn't pull back? What if it keeps going higher? Well, this is where we have to see the buyers really prove that they want this. We have to assume there are going to be some sellers waiting here overhead. This is one of the, although not the most reliable way to do it, it's one of the options waiting for the bears. The bears could look at this and think, well, we're at the double up. We're in the battle zone. We're at the high of that bull channel, right? It's worth a gamble here to see if we can get this price right back down to the lows of that channel again. That is likely where sellers are going to try to take a nibble. What the buyers need right now is they need to blow those sellers out of the water and make it very, very clear here now this is a bull market and don't even think about selling it. Looking at this now, I want to see enough strength to bring that moving average up, get it above the high of that channel so we can buy that pullback with confidence and get that move up to the high, of course, at 45.62. That's the short-term target, and then we'll play it. We'll basically play it by ear and see how they react to that high. I would imagine most profit taking will be happening at that high at 45.62. So a strong breakout pullback, get and stay above the high of that channel. It needs to be strong enough to deter the sellers from even trying to fade the highs, and it needs to be strong enough to drag that moving average up so we're not having to buy a pullback to the moving average, buying below the high of that bull channel. With that said, what about the sellers here? What can the sellers do right now? Well, again, we talked about this earlier. It's a really strong, when I look at this move, this is a really strong bull candle right into the high and then goes nowhere. That tells me that sellers are probably going to look at this and think, yeah, I'll give it a shot, right? And see if I'll give it one shot here to try to fade that high right back down. But again, that will be a gamble. It will very much be on the lower end of the reliability curve. The most reliable selling opportunity here will come again. Trying to gamble at the high is not going to be very reliable. Really, the most reliable selling opportunity is not going to come until we can get and break down below this battle zone. I'm expecting buyers to buy the low, buyers to buy the dip. If we can break through strong and then hold that pullback, that's where the sellers are going to have some wide open spaces with a target back down to that low. Short term, definitely bullish control right now, either a very strong breakout pullback to the upside or a nice deep pullback into that measured move, into the low of that channel, trap low, back up. It doesn't matter how we get it, but we definitely want to see a pullback right now to relieve some of the pressure here right at these highs. And again, if you're a seller, you've got two options: either gamble trying to fade the high or stay patient for a breakdown below that 44.28, and we'll go from there. Get a nice situation to set up on crude. It all depends on where we go in the next few hours. How about the S&P? S&P is bullish and trying to finish rotation back to the highs of a bull channel this evening. The bulls have control and will be looking for buying opportunities on the next pullback to the moving average, with the ideal setup being a bear trap down at that 2180 area where we have an unfilled gap below. Sellers don't have much to work with right now because the bulls look really, really strong. The only thing the sellers can really hope for, just like we talked about on crude oil, is going to be for a breakdown below the battle zone, below the gap, and ultimately below that 2178 even area right around that battle zone below. The day starts off with somewhat of a range-bound market, but that didn't last very long. You'll notice here, the first thing I looked at on this was, this is definitely feeling like a trading range. And of course, with that trading range, we see that move lower, back up. And what it looks like is, it looks like this move higher here is really fueled by sellers who tried to sell the high of this range and simply just gave up on it. That's what it looks like. That leads me to believe here now that there are some traps waiting in this area down here around this 21.8. In fact, this whole area really from 21.80 half down to that 21.78 area, with some definite emphasis put on these two areas, the gap and that 21.80 half. This would just be where buyers really waiting, right? Buyers waiting for that price to pull back for us. We know we're bullish in the short term. No matter what we think is going to happen, no matter what we think the chart is telling us, what is it actually telling us? What do we see right now? I'm seeing a new higher high. I'm seeing the buyers hold the pullback, and I'm seeing a very strong move higher. That means bulls have control. Bears have to earn it, right? Bulls just simply have to get a pullback, or same thing we talked about on crude oil, get another strong move higher. With that said, the one thing that definitely stands out here on that pullback was that we didn't even trap below that 21.80 half. Usually with a move like this, usually with a real strong move higher like this, you're going to see that market just trap low, right? What it'll do is it'll just kind of poke its head below and then launch right back up. We didn't get that little poke below 21.80 half, and it launched anyways. Definitely tells me there are stops waiting to get filled down there, and this is probably nothing more than a short covering rally, right? A short covering rally being that sellers were trying to sell off of that trading range high. Bottom line right now, we've got two options right now for